Hi everyone and welcome, John here, and today's video is the first in a series of weekly web scraping where we will take a website and we'll scrape the data and we'll look at how I did it, what packages or anything that I used, and sort of how to get that information out. So hopefully you guys will enjoy this and maybe learn something from it. So the first one we're going to be doing is hiking backpacks. It's from rai.com, and we can see there's 524 products over multiple pages, 18 to be precise. So the first thing that I always like to do is to check out the website itself and see how the pagination works. So I will come down here and I'll click page 2, and we can see that the URL has added the page equal to 2 at the end. So if I go back to page 1, we should go back to the first page where we were. Okay, so that's a good start. So now we know how we can loop through all the pages. Now my plan for this is to actually get all the main links off every page and then loop through and get the product information from within the product page. So we could take the information off this page here, but there's not an awful lot. Whereas if I go actually into a product, there's some more information that we can see. So there's lots of different things here. Now, before I move on, what I want to do is I just want to check this page and see how I'm going to get the information out, because how I'm going to do it depends on what Python libraries or packages I'm going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and inspect element first, is generally what I would do, and we'll have a look at the inspector on the left hand side, and we'll start hovering over and we'll have a look. Okay, so we can see that is in a span tag, so this all looks fairly accessible. What also I like to do is have a look at the source code, and I tend to copy a sort of unique or specific bit of information, usually the price in this case, and then I will go to view page source, and I'll make that bigger, and then search the source code for it. Now the first result here is quite interesting because we can see that we're inside this script tag and it's got what appears to be all the information in. So that's good to know. And if we go down another one, we can see that we've ended up all the way over here. Now if I highlight this whole line and move it to the middle, we can see that we are here inside this script type application, and it's got all the information within it for each one. We can see there's a product name here, there's a URL, there's a description, and the price and everything like that all along the line. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use chomp.js, and I'm going to use this line of the information, and that's where we're going to get the data from. That's going to make our coding so much easier because this is already going to be able to be turned into usable dictionaries in JSON. Right, so I've talked enough, let's get coding. The first thing we want to do is go back to the main page. Let's copy the URL, and I need it with the page thing on the end, so I'm going to go ahead, just grab that, page is equal to 2, and we're going to go, and I'm going to use requests HTML from this, so I'm going to do from requests HTML import an HTML session, and we're also going to need to use chomp.js, which I just described that we would need to use, and we'll leave it there for now. So I'm just going to say our URL, get that put in there, and we'll change it to page is equal to 1. So now we need to work out how to get the individual product URLs from each page. So I'm going to say s is equal to HTML session, so we have a session object to work with, and then I'm going to say r for the response is equal to s.get of the URL that we are looking at. So we're going to go back to the page now, and we're going to go, let's go back to the first one, and page is equal to 1, or nothing in that case. And now we're going to go ahead and inspect the element, and we're going to see where the URL for each product is. So I like to hover over the whole thing. You can kind of see it goes in blocks, and here we have under this A tag, we have a href here that we can use. So that tells us the product of the page. But because that's not a full URL, we're going to need to add in the HTTPS www bit in front of it. But it's interesting because all of these classes here have this sort of random or maybe odd string instead of saying product data or something that like a lot of websites do. So we're going to have to find a way around that. What I like to do is tend to collapse as much of this as possible and head back up the tree. So we can see that if I just close these ones down as well, here's a big long the list objects for the unordered list here that have all the information in for each of the products. You can see them being highlighted. But here we have a div ID of search results. So that's really good. So that means, as you can see that on the left-hand side of the screen, that narrows it all right down. So I'm going to copy that. And we're going to come back to here and we're going to say, we'll say, let's go for results is equal to r.html.find. And it was an ID, so we need to do the hashtag, and we're going to put search results in there. So now if we do print results from this, we should hopefully get our element back for that one. Yes, so here we are. Here's the element, it's a div, and it's the ID of search. So that's good. So now we know we're in the right place. So now we want to go just down the tree a bit. So underneath our search results, we have this UL class here, and then we have the LI. And after that, we have, if I just close these, we have this A here. So we've gone, you can see we're directly underneath. So let's take, again, the UL, the unordered list. Then we have the list item here, and then we have the A tag, which has the product link in it. So what that means we can do is we can actually chain together the CSS commands, and we can actually go directly to that. So what we can do is go, then the very first, the unordered list, and then it was an LI, and then it was an A. So what that means is all we're doing is some basic CSS selectors, and we're going within our search results, there's an unordered list, and then there's the list item, and then there's an A tag. So let's run that, and we should still get some elements. There we go, we've got a load of elements back. So these are basically all the links on that page within what we set up here, our search results. So these should all be product lists, product links. The downside that we've got here is there are actually two A tags within this list item. Here we are, so you can see both of them. So we're getting the same link twice. However, that's not the end of the world. Instead of trying to get around scraping it, all I'm going to do is when I convert my list, I'm just going to remove the duplicates. That's a nice and easy way around it. So what do we do? What do we need to do now? Well, we need to get the href element, the href attribute, sorry, from each element. So to do that, we would want to loop through each one and then get the href element. So let's do that now. Let's close this one. And let's say for link in results, we want to do link dot attrs href. And let's print that and check that that's the right thing. Yes, there we go. So we can see that we've got all of these links here now. We can see, you can clearly see that there's two of each of the same one. So to do, what else we need to do is we need to add the base URL to that. So you can either hard code it in and copy this, or I tend to add another variable in because you never know where you might need it. Base URL is equal to, and let's put that there. So if we just do print base URL plus link, I can't remember if we need this extra slash, / in or not, but we'll find out. Okay, so we've got too many, so I'm going to remove that from here. So that's all of our links constructed, so that's good. But now we need to work on a way of just returning the unique ones. And an easy way to do that is to use the list function and the dictionary from keys. So what we can do is we can just say print, let's add these to a list first. So let's say our product links is equal to this, and we can add that each time to product links dot append. So we're adding this each time, and then we can say links is equal to list dict dot from keys, and we'll give it our what would you call it, product links, and I think that should be enough. And then if we print the links list, we should have only each and every unique link there. And there you go, you can see that we've removed those. So that's one way of doing it, and this is quite cool. This is a good CSS selector to use. We've got some good practices in here, but this is loads of lines of code for one thing essentially. So what I want to do is I want to really tidy this up. And to do that, we're going to use list comprehension. So what we can do is we can remove a lot of this, and we can turn this into a function that will return this out. So I'm going to start removing some of the things that we don't need. So we can get rid of all of this because we don't need to create this extra list because we're going to do it all inside here. So what we can do is we can say results, and then we're going to do our list comprehension, and we want to take what we want out of it, which is our base URL plus the href, and then we can do for link in that. So all we're doing is some basic list comprehension saying we want this for, this is our for variable in this, so that should return that fine. And then if I just remove this back up here, and if we do our function, so we'll say define, and we'll call this fetch, and we're giving it a URL, and then we'll return out of the function. Oops, not like that. Let's move that back out, and we'll return this out of the function, and this is what gave us those product lists. So if I run this function now, we say fetch, and we give it the main URL, hopefully we'll get that, all that information that we just saw back out, except I've done something wrong. I've missed the colon on my function, and I'm missing the end of the brackets here. So you can see I was missing the end of my list comprehension bracket there. So now hopefully we'll get the links back, which we do. We didn't print them, which is why we can't see them. So let's just do that one more time, and we should be fine. There we go. So now we have a list of all the links for the products on that page. So that's good, that's working, but we know that there are multiple pages. So what do we want to do is to change it up so we get, instead of just the initial URL here, what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to go to X, and we're going to loop through, and we're going to use the numbers. So we can then just make it give us a new number each time, and then add that to the page at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this URL here, and I'm going to say get this, and we're going to remove that. I'm going to put X in here, and we are going to use an F string to automatically put whatever value of X we give to our fetch products URL into the page number there. So if I change this to page 2 and now run that, we're going to get a different set of products to the ones that we saw the first time around. We can see that they are different indeed. So now that's our product links sorted out, nice and neatly all done with our nice CSS selector here to get right down into them really easy, and our list comprehension to avoid having to do multiple lists and loads of for loops and loads of lines of code. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to look at getting that information out of each of the product pages. Now I mentioned earlier that we're going to use chomp.js for that because of the information is all here. I've moved that over, I didn't mean to. Let's put that back because the information is here. So what do we want to do? So we need to load up the page, and we need to find this script tag here, and we need to give this information to Chomp. So that's nice and straightforward. So to do that, and I'm going to write another function to do that right now. So I'm going to say parse product, and we're going to be giving it a URL because we're going to give it each URL for the product that we're going through. So then we can do r is equal to s.get our URL. And now we want to go back to the page, and we want to say, what do we need to find? We want to find this script tag. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that for now because we can do that nice and easily with CSS selectors as well. So I'm going to call this details because it's all the product details, r.html.find. And we were looking for a script tag with the attribute, so we can do that with our open brackets. And it was here, we can see type is equal to application /ld plus JSON, and we can then close that off here. And I'm going to go first as equal to true because otherwise this would return a list, and we know by looking at our page that the one we want here is the first one. So there's another one here, but we want the first one. If you wanted the second one, you would index the second one from the list. And then we can do data is equal to chomp.js.parse.js object. There you go. It suggests it. I don't need to remember how it goes every single time. And then we want to give it details.text because we want the text from that element. And then out of this, we want to return the data. So now if we do parse product and we give it, let's get it that URL here. Let's copy this product URL like that we're going to give it. So let's remove that, and we'll do print parse product, and we'll give it this URL for now to test that it works. We'll see what we get back. There we go. So we've got all of this information for this product now. And this is the same for every product that we're going to be scraping through. So we can really easily parse all the information out just by looking and checking to see if it was there in the first place. We've got all this information here that we can easily create a pandas data frame, which we're going to do at the end, and then just flatten it all out with JSON normalize and get a nice CSV file with all of this data in. So that's really cool, really useful. So our whole HTML parsing is the function with 3 lines of code in. So that's really useful and really cool. So definitely always check the HTML like I showed you at the beginning to make sure you're getting that data from that place. So what do we want to do now? So now we've got our function that's going to give us all of the product lists on each page, which we're going to loop through. We're going to do page 1 to, I think there was 18. And then we can get that information from the product for every URL that we give it. So we've got the 2 main parts of our code written. So we want to do the last bits now. So I'm going to create a main function. I'm just going to remove this. So we're going to say define main, and this is the one that we're going to run every time when the code is executed with if name is equal to main, but we'll come to that in just a minute. So we're going to say our URLs is equal to, so we're going to get all of the product URLs. Again, we're going to use list comprehension, and we're going to say fetch x, which is our function here. So this is the number, the page number we're going to give it, for x in range 1 to, and I'm going to do 1 to 3 to start with, just so we can test it, so we don't do too many requests to the server when we're actually not saving the data, just in case. So this is nice and simply 4x in range loop that we've just flattened into this comprehension, and that's going to give us all of the URLs for all the products on pages 1, 2, and 3. In fact, it should be just 1 and 2 because it's up to 3 in range. And then what we want to do is we want to save all of those into a list. However, because we're creating a list already, we would end up with a list of lists of product links. That just makes it a bit more complicated to loop through them easily and get that data back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Python itertools to change my list of lists into just a list that we can then nice and easily loop through. It sounds more complicated than it is. We're going to import itertools, so we do import itertools. This is within the Python standard library, and then we're going to say our products is equal to list, and we're going to do itertools here, and then it's going to do .chain from iterable URLs. So all this is going to do is it's going to take our list of lists that we've created, and it's going to go basically loop through all of it, and it's going to turn it into one big list of all product links, which is exactly what we want, because each of those links we can then give to our parse product function that is going to return the data that we want. The next thing we want to do from this function then is to return the data that we get when we pass those product URLs. So we want to return, and now we can have a list for this, which is fine. So we want to turn, again, list comprehension, parse product, URL, for URLs, for URL in products. There we go, got there in the end. So all we're doing here is we're running our parse product URL function. I need missing a bracket there. For every URL in our product list. So I've got possibly not the best variable names here, but you understand, you can see where they're coming from. So what we're doing is we're taking every product URL that we've just created a nice simple list for with itertools, and we're going to loop through every single one, and we're going to run our function on it, and that's going to return that data out into a list of all the products data, so we can then work with that nice and easily. So now we need a way to run all these functions for us in the right order and run and manage the session, etc., etc. And the easiest way to do that would just be to type out the names of the functions and what you want it to do. But I'm going to use if name is equal to main. If you're not familiar with this, it basically means that it will run these when the code is executed, assuming that the file name is within itself. So if we were to just run this file now, it wouldn't do anything. But if we do if name is equal to main and then we give it something, it will run that. But it won't run it if it's within another file. That's possibly not the best explanation of if name is equal to main, but basically just follow along and you'll understand it. So what we're going to do is if double underscore name is equal to, which is double equals main, then we're going to do this. So we're basically saying if the name of the file is this, then we're going to run it. And we want to do, I'm going to move actually this code into here as well. I don't think we need this one anymore, but we're going to need the base URL because we're here. In fact, we can put the base URL inside this fetch function. That will be fine, but we're going to need the session down here because we want to use the same session object throughout. And then we can say, let's do, well, actually we need to import pandas now. That's probably the best bet. So I'm going to say import pandas as PD. So this is just going to allow us to export the data really easily. We can use the JSON normalize method because we have dictionaries and JSON data that we can flatten out, and it's going to handle all of it for us. So I'm going to say df is equal to pd.json normalize. There we go. I'll just move this up so you can see. And we're going to say we want to run that on our main function. So our main function is the one that's going to return a nice big long list of all of the product data. So we're going to say whatever comes out of here, whatever product data we get, we're going to create a data frame with it using JSON normalize, which is going to flatten it all out into columns and everything we can see in a CSV file. And then I'm just going to do df dot to CSV. I will call this week1.csv, and I always do index is equal to false. Otherwise you get the pandas index down the side, which is no use to us. And then I'm just going to do print, and I'll just say finished, as we've not actually printed anything out, other than we wouldn't see anything working. If you want to see things working, you could always add some extra print statements in here, but I don't think we need to. As I said, I'm only going to run this on 2 pages. So this is where I run it and we find out what I've mistyped and where my errors are. None, apparently. Finished. Okay. So let's go row week 1. There we go. And you can see I have a nice long 60 products, which was 30 per page and all the information here. So that's worked great. This is actually called CSV Rainbow or something, which I find really useful if you don't have a CSV viewer in your VS Code. I like this one because it changes all the colors and you can see it nice and easily. So that's it, guys. That's worked really well. We've done that in, well, we're up to line 29. That's not a huge file. We've got some good use of CSS selectors in here. If you're not really up to speed with CSS selectors, I've got a video on that on my channel. But it's definitely worth playing around with. We're using requests HTML, which is at the moment my favorite web scraping library, just because it combines everything together. It's not necessarily lighter or faster than using Beautiful Soup and requests separately, but I find it's a bit more feature rich and it works really well. And we've got the Chomp.js where we're taking the data from there. So that was a good bit of sort of working out and researching the page to see where it was. Otherwise, we would have had to have gone and looped through a load of different bits of the page to get past the HTML out, and we would have had loads more lines of code, and we probably wouldn't have got all the information that we wanted because maybe we just couldn't find it or couldn't see it. Whereas doing it this way, we have it. We have a main function which is going to just control everything and run these two fetch and the parse functions for us, and then we're using if name is equal to main with our session here. So we use the same session throughout, which speeds up the loading of the pages and keeps everything nice and tidy. And then pandas for JSON normalize, just to flatten everything out and give us some nice columns. Now this won't always work depending on what your data looks like, but it's definitely worth trying first if you have data that look like that, because there's a good chance it will work. So that's it, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed this and learned something from it. I've done an awful lot of talking, not an awful lot of coding, but I'm going to be uploading this code to my GitHub so you can see it and have a look and have a play around if you want to. Hopefully you've learned something, or at least just enjoyed this video. So thank you very much for watching. I've got loads of web scraping content on my channel already, more to come. So if you're interested in that sort of content and Python in general, I'd recommend subscribing so you don't miss it. Hit a like on this video, drop me a comment, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you very much and goodbye.